feel that we've already started our great tea party here of like-minded resonant souls. And I am thrilled to be here. I am Jan Jorgensen, the creator of She Said Talks, along with my amazing partner, 𝐀𝐁𝐎𝐔𝐓.
Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are on the planet. We welcome you to this fabulous conversation we're about to have with the phenomenal Dr. Matthew Fox. So what a pleasure and honor it is to be here with you today and to have not only your years of experience and wisdom, but the passion and love that you have for both the divine sacred feminine and the divine sacred masculine, and the divine sacred feminine expression after my own heart, that is the Black Madonna. Ooh, man, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
And hello, Matthew. We're going to bring you in with an official introduction in just a moment. But I wanted to preface this with how excited we are in our social media community. Matthew Fox. So here we are, 𝐀𝐁𝐎𝐔𝐓 and myself. We consider ourselves humbly leaders and speakers for the divine feminine community. And here we have Matthew Fox, theologian, mystic, educator, author, and so much more. I feel like a blessed jam sandwich today. So here we are, the three of us, helping the planet to understand sacred divinity for humans. And these two are carrying the torch so brightly. So I had heard of you, Matthew, as if you were a legend, and I didn't realize, but I've been reading your Hildegard von Bingen book for years. And actually, I was presented that award last year from Gateway University. So you just see the degrees of separation that we all are. And it's as if we already know each other. You're an elder, akin to a crone. You are a friend to crones. You are a friend to all humankind worldwide. You are the Joseph Campbell of the mystical divine worlds, and you bring words and a presence that is so timely and so needed at this precipice of the Dominator Trance's fire. I read that in his book last night, The Hidden Spirituality of Man. It is so deeply quoted and researched. It's like reading an orchestra, a sonnet of remembrance of absolute truth through the eyes of a deep scholar. As you can see, I can go on and on, but I wanted to mention that I picked a card to celebrate our time here together from my deck, and I excitedly, I guess, threw it in the air, but it was the last card in the deck, Global Transition, where our presence becomes one with divinity. And I said, I couldn't roll out a more red carpet for this blessed man. But actually, 𝐀𝐁𝐎𝐔𝐓 is going to do the real fancy bio now. I'll mute myself.
Well, just hold on one second. The mailman is about to put mail through the box and the dogs are going to bark. So I'm mute for really quickly.
I know how that is. I have a dog too.
Carrie would chop water, right? Well, though we're becoming illuminated. I'll find that card and I'll show you the image on it. It's just, it's all about today. As things get darker, we get brighter, right?
Or need to.
Hope so.
Or need to. Yeah. So, welcome, Reverend Dr. Fox. It is such an honor to have you here with us. I am elated to have a revolutionary that you are, a rebellious revolutionary, so powerful and so fierce that the Catholic Church had to say, he's too much. That's when I fell in love with you. I'm like, my God, somebody too much for the church. Yes. So when I learned that about you, I've been following you ever since. So you are one of my best gifts from COVID. The pandemic led me to some interview you did, and I'm like, who's that guy? I gotta know him. So officially, Reverend Matthew Fox, PhD, author, theologian, and activist priest, has been calling people of spirit and conscious into the creation spirituality in lineage for over 50 years. His 42 books, lectures, retreats, and innovative education models have ignited an international movement to awaken people to be mystics, prophets, contemplative activists who honor and defend the earth and work for justice. You wrote that for me, right? You came to earth for me. Matthew today is an Episcopal priest after having been expelled from the Dominican order to which he belonged for 34 years by Cardinal Ratzinger for one, being a feminist theologian, scandal, and two, calling God mother, and three, working too closely with Native Americans. Oh my God, the shame. He tries his best to wear these badges of honor with humility. See his website for more goodies. And so you had me at hello, just so you know. You had me at hello, because anybody that's a rebel rouser is my friend. And so you are my guide in mysticism, and you and Andrew Harvey, represent the best of the masculine for me and give me hope that there are seed sprinklers and seed planters in the masculine body who are just planting the seed for future masculine mystics to awaken, to remember who they are, to come forth, and to work on the healing work that's needed in the male community. Because right now we see the ferocious, violent, petty, petulant, aggressive, bullying rise of toxic masculinity to the highest level of power in this country. We've seen it already in other countries, but here it has returned, and it has returned with a vengeance, literal vengeance. So I love that your new book talks about how to reawaken. Yet, unfortunately, you're back right there. You go. The hidden spirituality of men. I can't think of a better time for this conversation to have, because we need to all participate in the, no, can't see that. There you go. And participate in the awakening of the divine spiritual in men, so that those who have ears to hear and eyes to see can recognize that there is an alternative to what's rising. And they don't have to be paralyzed by it. They don't have to be angry about it. They don't have to be, I'm leaving the country by it. We need to show them, both women and men, that there is another way to be right here now, a force for good.
Well, his book has the 10 archetypes and the 10 metaphors that absolutely give men new paths.
I know, that's why I'm bringing it up because I want him to speak to that, because we have what 6 weeks before we have a little bit more. Inauguration is the 20th of January, so we have like 2 months to start nurturing and massaging a new consciousness that doesn't slip into despair and fatalism, but wakens up to, oh, there is something I can do. Because pretty much a lot of people feel there's nothing we can do. We're stuck with them for 4 years. Honey, that would be good if it's only 4 years. I don't think that's the case. I think it's going to be a lot longer, because we have opened the belly of the beast, the first original wound of this country. We have opened up the depths of the horror that is America. The horror that is American, which is the genocide of Native Americans and the enslavement of millions of people from Africa who were brought here. And those two wounds have been covered over pretty much with icing and leaves and all kinds of stuff, but it's burst open. Now we see the core of the foundation of this country. And we could either keep sliding deeper into it or we can rise out of it. And I say, let's be part of rising out of it so that we can heal that wound and give America a chance of a do-over. And that's why I think it's going to take much longer than 4 years to turn it around. But we have to be there at the beginning to make sure it happens at all. So welcome. Please tell us your
Welcome, Matthew.
wonderful
And
suggestions and solutions.
Let's be a little bit more optimistic and say, really, there's an election in 2 years. And we could prove that we're on a new path. I think there's going to be a lot of voters' remorse. I already hear about it with these weird people he's proposing to run the Defense Department and intelligence and of course Justice Department. My goodness, it's beyond the pale. Oh, and say nothing of medicine and health department. So I think there may be a real revolt in less than 2 years. So, but as you say, we've got to work. And my definition of hope comes from David Orr, the eco-philosopher. He says hope is a verb with the sleeves rolled up. I really like that. It's about going to work, which is what you're talking about. But of course, we need to talk about inner work as well as outer work. You see,
absolutely,
they go together. I wrote a book on that, on the invention of work, and we have to work on ourselves. We have to ask, why did so many Americans choose a person who was honest about one thing, about what his agenda was. Project 2025 is out there, and of course he has a track record already of 33,000 lies as president and so much more. So anyway, about my book, I'm so glad to be with you both because I do think this is excellent timing as people have been in grief for 2 weeks and are just beginning to come up for air. And we should offer them this kind of inner work. Yes. And it's a book on the sacred masculine is not just for men; it's for women too. Just like the recovery of the goddess is for men as well as women. So at our deepest levels, at our soul level, the way Jung would put it is that there's a masculine and a feminine energy in women and a feminine and masculine energy in men. And so, we're complex human beings, we Homo sapiens are. And the first response I got to this book was from a woman. She wrote me a long email. She said, I have been working on recovering the sacred feminine for the last 20 years of my life, and I don't regret a second of it. But she said, I have 2 sons who are teenagers, and I don't think they have good models at all about what masculinity is about. And until I read your book, she said, I didn't realize how much men have suffered under patriarchy. And that's just like I like to remind people that slave masters suffered under slavery. Not obviously as explicitly, at least not if your life is built around money and power, but in fact, they lost their souls. And so, everything is mutual, everything is interdependent, evil and good. So, and then she said, I am a feminist and I have a library at home. I have over 220 books on the sacred feminine, not a single book on the sacred masculine. So I'm so excited about your book and to share it with my sons. And she said, you are right. The next stage of feminism is that we women link up with the men to help redefine masculinity. So that was the first response I got to the book. It was from a woman. That really hit me. Then another response I got was really interesting. I was at a conference on earth and spirit. It was held in Santa Fe. And afterwards, this tall man came up to me, long white hair, very elegantly dressed. And he was Native American. And he said, I've been working in prisons for 12 years. And he said, I've been trying to find a book that would get prisoners to look at themselves because prisoners don't want to look at themselves. They want to project on everybody else. And I have not found one until your book came along. He said, because you're dealing with archetypes. You're dealing with these these stories and ancient stories. He said it really got to these men, and they finally are discovering the nobility inside. I'll never forget that phrase. It just moves me so much. And as you know, indigenous people everywhere are poets because they're more in touch with the elegance of words and the power of words, because they're not reading things on a paper 24 hours a day, right? Because they still are carrying stories and power through the word. So when he said that, discover the nobility inside, I was just so moved by that. That's what men have to recover, that you don't have to prove yourself by building pyramids or towers with your name on it, or bank accounts that are so big you can't even count it all, et cetera, et cetera. There's already a nobility inside men and women, inside all beings. Look at how noble animals are until we get hold of them and make them like ourselves. But I mean, there's a nobility, and nobility is about a beauty, and it's about strength, and it's about elegance. And that's built into all creatures, and certainly into humans and into all men. So both of those responses to the book were very important to me, and that the second one came from inside a prison, where men end up very often in very bad places. So my approach is to look for to name 10 metaphors or archetypes, because these are ancient. These go far beyond any religion we have on the earth today. They're there. They're built into our psyches, our common unconscious. So the first is Father Sky. And this is so important because traditions all around the world. John Mbiti is a great African scholar, and he spent a lot of time in Africa. He teaches at Temple University, at least last time when I knew him. And he talks about how the African love of the sky is a love of a living being. And he goes on and on about that. Well, that's true of so many ancient traditions. The Aboriginals in Australia, I quote from them too. But what happened with the Enlightenment and with modern science, Newton and all that, they literally turned the sky into a machine. They said the universe is a machine. And that just shuts down Father Sky from our psyches. So men have been without Father Sky, a living being, for centuries in the West. And that's why we become violent. What's that?
They're just
Because
totally.
we don't have a place to invest our energy, our zeal, our anger, moral outrage, or our capacity to link to what's beautiful and vast. We've had to hunker down, and then the Industrial Revolution came along and put us in mines where you were underground, a very dangerous place to be for hours and hours, 6 days a week, and then or on the assembly lines, where it's totally inhuman kind of work, where it's just about parts and hurrying. So the whole system, the whole culture, divorced from Father Sky, from the living Father Sky. But now the new science is just the opposite. We're being told that a star is being born every 15 seconds.
Quantum
But stars are really a big thing. Our star, the sun, can hold 1,000,000 Earths, for God's sake. And those things are happening out there. I mean, Father Sky is alive again. There's that one archetype can shake us up and assist men to recognize the nobility inside and our nobility to study the stars and to look at Webb telescope, what that can do for us and what it is doing for us in acknowledging the awe and the wonder of this 13.8 billion year drama that has brought our species to this amazing Earth. So there's just so much to recover about our glory, our elegance, just from reconnecting to Father Sky. And I don't know if you want me to. I can stop and we can talk. But I don't want. If you want me to go on and name a few more.
Which one? or which maybe 2 or 3 out of the 10 do you feel is
Yeah.
most appropriate to start with immediately, right here and now,
Yes.
for this era?
Okay.
Like,
Right.
what do we
Okay.
need to introduce boys
Absolutely,
and
Father.
into right now?
Yeah, absolutely, Father Sky. Now, I was talking about my book a few years ago at a group in Baton Rouge, a women's group called the Red Shoes. And when I finished, it was a whole weekend retreat. A woman came up to me, she said, I have 2 little boys. She said, you have to translate kids where this Father Scott or these metaphors that you're giving out here. So I just came out with a book this month called for kids,
I love it.
The Return of Father Sky.
Yeah.
And it's
Love it.
poetry for kids. So let me just, what I just said for adults, let me just read a couple stanzas, okay? Father Sky, they said, oh, there's good pictures in here too. Father
Ooh.
Sky, they said, was a long time dead, like lead. So not even a bed bug lived there, where the moon rose and the sun seemed to roam as it chose, where it chose. The universe is a machine, was the meme. Then people no longer chose to touch the stars or mimic the bards or with music the galaxies made as they passed by in the supposedly dead, dull sky. Then boys and men lost a friend.
Ooh.
Big, wise Father Sky withdrew because he had to. So bid bye-bye to thousands and thousands of years gone by. And then I point out the connection of ritual. All ritual is about connecting to Father Sky, isn't it? It's about the solstice and the equinox and all that. Stonehenge, you go all the way back. It's always about that. Radharang says that the only ritual that lives is that which connects psyche and cosmos. Psyche and cosmos. Connecting soul to seasons changing, ranging far and wide, a special place to abide in summer, winter, spring, and fall, dancing, singing, chanting, all making noise and dressing up in costumes to welcome the movements of Father Sky nearby. So that's what I've tried to do is translate this archetype for kids into kid language. And I think adults and grandparents and babysitters can have a lot of fun with kids on their lap, reading this story, you see, to boys and girls while they're vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, another archetype that's really important today is the Green Man.
Yes, I was
The
hoping you
Green
get
Man
him.
archetype. The Green Man came alive in the West in the 12th century, the last time that the goddess came alive in the West. The Green Man came in on the coattails of the goddess, the Black Madonna, and the whole revolution moving from the masculine patriarchy defensive architecture of the Dark Ages into the light-filled, color-filled Gothic revolution of the late 12th and early 13th century. So there too, a culture was undergoing what we're going to today. The return of the divine feminine changes everything. Education changed, religion changed, architecture changed. Again, Radharang says, you want to know the soul of a culture, go to its architecture first. And we move from that squat, defensive, small windows, thick wall architecture, Romanesque architecture, into this opening up and the stained glass and all these achievements of the Gothic architecture, which was much more feminine. And indeed, in 150 years, Europe built 500 cathedrals dedicated to the goddess, Notre Dame, Our Lady of Paris, Chartres, Lyon, Rennes, all these cities. Just the divine feminine came in, but the Green Man came in with her. Like there are, I think I have the numbers right, 175 or so pictures or images of the divine feminine in Chartres Cathedral, and I think 54 images of the Green Man. So he came sneaking in on her coattails. Yeah. So the Green Man is often pictured with a big beard that goes around his head like a wreath. And in the beard, there live birds and grapes and other living things. And so the green man is an archetype about our relationship to the vegetative world, to the plant world. And of course, in the Native American tradition, plants are the wisest creatures on earth. And why? They learned how to eat the sun. They learned photosynthesis. And without the plants, there'd be no animals, there'd be no us. So, and of course, the flowers actually fine-tune the oxygen, we now know, to make our breath possible and all that. So we owe so much to, of course, including our food. We owe so much to the green world, the world of plants, the green people. And that's the second archetype that is so much, because it's all about ecology. It's all about the survival of the planet as we know it. It's all about what's being attacked by politicians who say climate change is a hoax, or that they want to drill, baby, drill, right to the end. It's the opposite of that. The green man has a consciousness of our interdependence with all the rest of Mother Earth. And of course, remember that word Mother Earth, that the war against Mother Earth is a war against the mother. It is part of misogyny. I had a dream years ago, and it said to me, your mother is dying. But my little mother was not dying. She was up and around and kicking and all the rest. But then I realized, oh, yes, Mother Earth is dying. Mother Compassion is dying. Mother Wisdom is dying. Mother Church is dying, etc. So there are all these layers. But the first dimension is Mother Earth that is dying. And but it didn't say it's dead. It said it is dying. It's in the process of dying, that there is still time to wake up and get something done.
So Matthew, I'll list as we're speaking over our heads on the finished video, all the 10 archetypes. My own favorite is the blue man, the compassionate artist.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm happy to jump to that.
Steiner said it would be the artist in the northern United States that would lead us into the vibrational zone of overturning the soulless AI mechanization of man. So that's us. That's what we're doing today. But what really stood out in your book was the disconnection that males have, and primarily with Father Sky, with natural, the nature of all that is. But you use the word shame so powerfully, and that seems to be the core wound for men these days. Emasculated, disconnected, unsure of their roles, just flailing as women are rising and finding their
Yes. Yes. Well, you're so right. You know, confusion and of course violence. I mean, 95% of these people who are shooting up schools and churches and synagogues and movie theaters are young men. And you know, the violence that comes from ignorance and from not feeling one's nobility, from not, and I think a lot of the election was this too. When you read about why people voted for Trump, a lot of them, you know, are in a state of pressure, stress. They're feeling financial stress. They're feeling gender stress, if you will. They don't have a good definition of what healthy masculinity is. So how can they relate to women and or themselves?
Yes.
Pardon me?
Disempowered.
Disempowered. Yes. Disempowerment. Yes.
And disenfranchised.
But what is real power now here? You know, the word virtues. Now, Hildegard of Bingen talks about this a lot. The word vir is a Latin word for man. So virtus is manliness. Virtus is a Latin word for virtue. So virtues like courage and care and compassion and justice, this is where real manliness resides. And Hildegard goes on about that. She writes her nuns, her fellow nuns, and she says, to man up. She wrote emperors and a pope and abbots and all these other men who had all this power. And she said, you're missing the most important thing, which is justice. So, and she told the Pope, you are surrounded by evil men who cackle like hens during night and during the day. She said, get away from those people. Man up and do your work, which has to do with justice. She keeps returning to justice. But my point is that, in one word, you have the summary of authentic masculinity. And that is virtues. And virtues also means power, but it's healthy power. It's not power to control others, not power over, it's power with, which is compassion, passion with, power with. So that's why, the Dalai Lama can say, we can do away with all religion, but we can't do away with compassion. Compassion is my religion. And then Jesus in Luke 6 can say, be you compassionate like your Creator in heaven is compassionate. Compassion is at the pinnacle of authentic power. But we're being fed daily this inauthentic power of just buying things and exploiting things, and power for ego's sake, not power for compassion's sake and grace. But I'm happy to talk more about that archetype of the blue man, because I'm so glad you brought it up. I love it. And this was a discovery for me. I knew about the green man. I knew about Father Sky, but I hadn't really explored it that deeply till I did this book. But the blue man I discovered while I was doing the book. And it's so interesting because Swami Muktananda, a great Hindu saint of the late 20th century, tells us in his autobiography, which is a wonderful autobiography called
Play of Consciousness.
Yeah, there you go. He says he had a meditation of the of a pearl that morphed into a blue man. And he said it was the single most important meditation of his whole life, which is amazing because this guy spent a lot of hours meditating. And he said it got him over his fear of death, which is really interesting. How many men have not dealt with the fear of death? And secondly, it empowered him for his creativity and especially powers for healing. For him, it was a healing energy, the blue man, and art and creativity. All that was his experience. Well, now back in the 12th century, the abbess Hildegard of Bingen also had a deep meditation, a deep experience, and she painted it of the blue man. In fact, I have it on the cover of a book. I'm going to go get it. My book on her paintings.
Yeah, pull it to your right. There
Maybe
you
go. No, that's not it. This is it.
To your front, to the front of you, yes.
Okay.
Illuminations?
And Dennis can get you the actual slide if you need it.
What is that?
It's in Illuminations.
Illuminations.
But see, it's a man in sapphire blue. Illuminations is her word for her paintings because they came as mystical experiences, the light, you see. But if you look carefully, this blue man, notice what he's doing. His hands are like this. And this is a practice now. Put your hands at your side, bring them up, and do what the blue man is doing. So do it again and feel what's going on in your body. You're lifting your chest up and your heart, therefore, and you're putting your heart into your hands. That's compassion. That's the archetype for compassion. And Hildegard says there's a blue man inside all of us. We are all healers. We are all capable of compassion, therefore. And to me, that's just a brilliant naming. Her painting is a brilliant naming of what the blue man is. The blue man, blue for one thing is a color for healing, and it's a gentle color. And we associate it with Mary and often other goddess figures. And of course, it's also the blue of the ocean from which we all come. And of course, it's also Father Sky, isn't it? On a good day, before the wildfires hit. And so anyway, this archetype, the blue man, but she too, amazing, with her meditation, she mentions the pearl as well. Now, for Hindus who practice, I have friends who are in ashrams, and one of the biggest feasts of the year is this feast of the blue man, and the pearl morphing into a blue man. Now, what's behind that archetype? Well, the pearl is an imperfection in the oyster, isn't it? An imperfection, but it gets worked on by the sea and by the sand over a long period of time, and then it becomes a gem. pearl. That's us. We're imperfect, at least your neighbor is. And we get worked on by life and by time and by culture and by struggle and by beauty. But we turn into pearls. We pearl into what Paul calls the seed of God. We become seeds of God. But it takes work. It's outer work and it's inner work. There's discipline involved. There's struggle. There's failures. There's all the things that go on in life. But the good news is that we can morph like the pearl does. The imperfection in an oyster can into a beautiful being. And I think that's part of this whole engine. But it's just so amazing to me that a 20th century Hindu and a 12th century Christian nun had almost the identical meditation experience. And Hildegard painted it. I don't think that Swami Muktananda painted it.
I'm
So
inspired.
it's a reminder of how creative we are and artistic. What's that?
I'm so inspired by this, but before I even talk about what you brought up, what you said, there were three that you came up with, three archetypes that are perfect for this era that we just walked into.
Yes.
What's the third one?
Third one is the blue man.
Oh, there's the third one. You're gonna pick
Father Sky, green man, blue man. Yeah. And you see, creativity is so important today. If humanity is going to survive, we've got to obviously reinvent the way we're doing energy. And every day I'm reading on the internet these new inventions that are coming out about how to harness the waves of the sea, for example, or how to connect now to the fire that's burning in the depths of the earth, and how we could actually use a lot of the equipment we now have for taking oil out of the earth, obviously, that is putting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and killing the sky. We can use a lot of that equipment to get the earth, the heat from the center of the earth. And there's just so much. That's the one thing we have going for us as a species is our creativity. But we've been using for centuries to exploit the earth, to just make money with, and to leave a mess behind, which is obviously what we've inherited. That's what climate change is, the mess, the carbon dioxide, etc. So here's where our power is, and our hope is, and time's running out, obviously. But that's where the blue man just bursts on the scene today. Oh, notice I'm wearing blue. I'm glad about that. So are you, Anastasia?
Yes.
So anyway, I think those are the three most important. Others are too, like hunter-gatherer. That's a real important archetype because we all carry it in us for 95% of our human Homo sapiens time on Earth. We've been hunter-gatherers, so we all have that energy. What are we choosing to hunt and gather for? For example, hunting and gathering for ways to get energy from Mother Earth that is healthy and that returns favors on the Earth and doesn't destroy it. Of course, another thing that has changed radically is education. And that's where the blue man comes in too, that we have to give more attention to the right hemisphere of the brain. The left hemisphere has been running things in our education system for centuries, and it's not enough. It's dangerous. Einstein said, and I quote, "I abhor American education," end quote. Why did he abhor American education? Because he said we've been given two gifts, the gift of the rational brain and the gift of the intuitive brain. And the values come from the intuitive brain, he said, not from the rational brain. The rational brain gives you method, it does not give you values. So he said, we live in a society that does not honor the intuitive brain, but only the rational brain, whereas a rational brain should be serving the intuitive brain, he said. So the solution to education is to honor the intuitive brain again, which is the brain of art, creativity, intuition, play, what Otto Rank called the irrational, and love and values, therefore. And we live in a valueless society. You can see it in the legal system. It's just that these lawyers would sell their soul. Half of them are in prison now to serve a president because it meant prestige and power and money, but not asking a single question about values. And our so-called public education system, we're told you can't even bring religion into class. Well, healthy religion. So I worked with inner city teenagers in Oakland. I developed a program, because 64% of Black boys would not graduate from high school when I started this about 15 years ago. And I developed a value system I call the 10 C's that is not connected explicitly to religion. And so we were able to teach it in public high schools. And we had this program going for 2 years and with real powerful results. And the 10 C's are cosmology and ecology, because they're really the same thing. Ecology is functional cosmology, says Thomas Berry. Chaos, and these kids had PhDs in chaos. Not one of them lived with two parents, and just getting to school in the morning was amazing, and et cetera, et cetera. So they know about chaos, but then we connected that to chaos theory, that chaos is part of creativity and is part of how the universe works. Compassion, community, critical thinking, courage, celebration, and rituals, in other words. And a few more that I can't remember right now. But the point is that with a little imagination, you can create value systems and take them into school. And these kids, they really got into it. We had them making movies. And he said, you can make a movie, whatever you want, but you have to bring in a few of the C's in while you're doing it. So one kid who was only a freshman, 14-year-old Black kid, he had an uncle who fixed cars. So he created a movie around ecology. That is, he turned a gasoline engine into a vegetarian engine with his uncle's help. And they filmed the whole thing. And at the end, the film ends with a race by a gasoline-driven car and a muscle car driven by vegetable oil. And of course, you can guess which car won the race. But so this guy,
which one? Please tell me.
Well, the vegetarian car beat the gasoline car.
Or the paradigm.
This guy was in the muscle car seat. And so all these kids chose these creative movies, but they inserted some value into it. And thereby it wasn't just, they were learning something because they had to apply a value to their interests. 4 or 5 of them were freshmen, 14-year-olds, and they were gay. So they did this. They went down the street with a microphone and a video camera, and they stopped strangers on the streets in Oakland and said, "We're gay. What do you think of that?" And that was their movie, the responses to that. But I could just tell, but they grew up in that semester. They got into their integrity, into their truthfulness, and got over the fear thing, and they did it together like a team. And so, I mean, the youth are filled with creativity, but they don't get asked about it mostly in school. School's about passing someone else's exam instead of birthing the wisdom that's inside. And at the end of the semester, we had a gathering of 150 adults. We had each kid get up, tell the story of their movie, show the movie, and then take questions. And at the end of the night, one guy came up, he's in his 60s. He said to me, "Matt, I'm so moved I can't talk. I'll call you in 48 hours, he said. And that was my experience too. I am so moved by the nobility of these kids in living not easy lifestyles, but they had humor and they had nobility inside, and it came out in the making of their movies. That's the Blue Man.
What I love about your book is, here's the why, the preface is the problem, and then the answers. But at the end, you have all these activities and exercise. I was blown away. I said, just what you're talking about, making it real, this transition from the mental dominating for the mental serving, the intuitive. We're talking masculine and feminine here, to the feminine intuitive blossoming and getting value and respect. But these exercises are so powerful at the end, because women say, well, great, yeah, Well, here's exercises. So
Thank
that's
you. I'm glad
they're
that worked for you.
wonderful. They're very
Wonderful.
powerful.
I'd
And of
like to,
course, the end of the book, I'm trying to bring together the feminine and the masculine. The last two chapters are about that.
but that's where I
Because
was going
go,
with my question.
That's where
okay,
we're
great.
going
Let's go
next.
there.
That's where I'm going
Okay.
because, you know, one of the things that you said that was so pertinent to this discussion or this exploration, I should say, is that, you know, getting into the right hemisphere. So, you know, literally getting into your right mind means getting into your feminine mind, means getting into your divine sacred mind. And it's never said like that. But isn't that the case?
It is. It's mysticism.
It's mysticism. So
And
into that
mysticism, I
part
call
where
it
you
our
don't
mystical
know.
brain, the right
That's
brain.
right. The mystical things you don't know, you can't prove, you have no clue of, but being willing to be uncomfortable, being willing to be in the dark, to be in the unknown. We have the European to American culture has vilified that which is sacred, that which is dark, the womb,
Yes, yes.
the earth, the cosmos.
Yeah.
In order to just one of the ways to justify the slave trade is to make black bad. So it started with just making black people, but then it had to extrapolate to all things black and dark are scary and bad and need to be controlled and dominated and caged and chained.
Exactly.
So all that inner journey that you go on when you're with Muktananda or with Van Bingen, that inner journey is into darkness, into the unknown, and being willing to be with it.
Exactly.
And so when you make the natural process of winter, which is when you go within and get stillness, and when you make that bad, and it has to have light all the time. And we have all this artificial light because white is better, light is better. You know, it keeps us all, our circadian rhythms are off. We don't know when to rest. We have lights at it all the time with screens. Like it's thrown us off, and we are paying the price for white is right, dark, black is bad. You know, so I love that you talked about getting into your right mind, because that is what is called the feminine energy, compassion, justice. What did you say? The intuitive, all those things are feminine. Scary.
And the darkness. And the darkness. My Stark Art says the ground of the soul is dark.
And it is. It has to be.
And it is.
Birth in that womb.
Yeah, and that's why we need art. You know, art is our language, and silence. Silence too. All that is so integral to mysticism, and it doesn't get the attention. But remember, what birthed our civilization was the Enlightenment. You know, and so notice that's putting the Enlightenment on the pedestal. But what we need now is this Endarkenment, and to return to mystery. And what we're learning, you know, I've interviewed cosmonauts and astronauts, and most of them came back mystics because they told me it's the utter silence out in space and the darkness in space. And they said, when I look back and saw this one shining object, namely Mother Earth, against this black background of the rest of the cosmos, they say it flipped my soul upside down. Well, that's what mystical experience is.
Yes.
And but the depths of earth, the depths of the ocean, like you said, are dark. The depths of the sky are dark. The depths of our souls are dark.
The soul, everything comes out of darkness.
There you go.
And because it's feminine, we have to vilify it, because women's power is divine, and that's not allowed. We're not allowed to say that. But
and we were 9 months in the dark.
Men cannot repeat the gift of life that women can. And that is the reason why we're being tormented, why Eve was the scapegoat, you know, why everything, even if you're not Christian, you know, women have been vilified as the reason for our horrors, as opposed to the source of life that we are.
I think we've been living in a very thin bandwidth, humanity, specifically in Western youthful America. I think we've been separated from the depths of our dark, and certainly haven't gone to the height of the light that we can bring in. We're coming on the finish of this conversation.
Before you close up,
never over.
I wanted to talk about, because hold on.
My card.
I know, hold on. I just want to finish why I'm very glad that he brought up getting into the right mind, and why it's feminine, why it's important, because he talks about, the last thing he talks about in the book is the sacred marriage.
Yes.
The sacred marriage of of the Black Madonna, my favorite, and Black Madonna and the Green Man. So this again, like the right brain, the left brain, the intuitive and the method, that, you know, this is it. So I just wanted to tie it together that, you know, you talk about that, and I just wanted you to talk about it just a little bit more in terms of the context of saving men, saving the men, divine masculine in us, as we step into this new era in January, which already started.
Perfect.
Yes, well, in many ways, that's the pardon me, the culmination of the book. To look at the sacred marriages we can create when we have the healthy masculine name for us, if you will, and practiced. I'm glad you brought in the practices, Jen. And of course, the healthy feminine too, sacred feminine. And of course, the Black Madonna is a marvelous archetype for that, because she represents the cosmos, and she also represents joy and celebration, and transformation. She's often pictured with a headdress with a bell in it. What's that about? Well, that's about waking people up, waking culture up, waking the society up. And of course, she also represents grief. And that's getting into the, acknowledging the suffering of our histories and of our own lives. You see, because when you sit on grief, that's when anger builds up, and bitterness. Aquinas says bitterness comes from holding anger in a long time. And you see a lot of bitterness in this particular politician who's just been made president. He's out to revenge and all these things he's promising. That's from sitting on his anger toward his father and others in his life, and not attending to grief, because anger is the first level of grief. Sadness is deeper than the anger. That's the second level. But we have to have grieving ceremonies. We need rituals and that's part of the right brain work, isn't it? Rituals where we can grieve together, because there's so much to grieve today. There is the disappearance of the forests and the animals and our own species. And I say, people are complaining about immigration today. Wow, wait until the sea rises 2 and 3 feet, and there will be billions of people on the move. So if you think immigration is an issue today, boy, just hold on to your hat, or put that blue man to work and start creating authentic alternatives to the way we're living on the earth today, and the way we're doing education on the earth today. We must bring the right hemisphere of the brain into education, which is the feminine. That's a path to wisdom. Wisdom is feminine. That's part of the Black Madonna. She stands for wisdom. Sophia. And wisdom, exactly, Sophia and Shekinah. And wisdom is what's going to save us, because knowledge alone, we've proven it, is dangerous. With knowledge, we can blow up the world with the knowledge that creates nuclear war and all that, on the one hand. But then when knowledge links up to wisdom, then something positive can happen. So what's really happening, I think, is we're being invited to the next level of evolution. And either we're going to make it or we're not. And of course, many people feel it's too late already. But I think that we have to roll up our sleeves, which is what hope is, and go to work. And the kind of things we're talking about reinventing the human, as Thomas Berry talked about, reinventing the human. But we've been talking about reinventing the masculine, which is half of the human. And the work that's gone into recovering the sacred feminine is another half of the human. So to bring them together, these sacred marriages you're talking about, and hey, we've got something with energy and hope and possibility. And this should be able to unite all of us, I think.
And that marriage, I just want to say for our audience, and as a reminder to myself, the sacred marriage that has to take place first within us. The divine feminine and the divine masculine in us has to be married, because they've been at war for centuries.
Yes.
When patriarchy declared war on the goddess, and all the goddesses, who most of the earth goddesses are Black Madonnas without that name Madonna, but they're Black, they're earth goddesses. When they declared war on women on earth goddesses, on the deities from the era of when God was a woman. When they declared that war, they shut down a part of themselves, because you can't hate women without killing the divine feminine in you. Just like you cannot hate and enslave people, excuse me, and commit genocide without killing your soul. And the hole in the soul that is American has been festering and molding and is exploding now. And
But
so there's a marriage that has to take place that will be the balm in Gilead, that will be the healing. And that is totally the Black Madonna. She heals all sin. She heals all grief. She heals all that has been destroyed by masculine. I won't even say sacred masculine, by the masculine patriarchal force. So she is life. She heals sickness. She heals war. She heals childbirth. She heals all the things that are about birthing and sustaining life. And so her rise has to happen now, but she has to rise and bring the dormant divine masculine with her. And that starts on the inside before we can start connecting with the outer men. We have to do that inner work. Both men is needed.
Both men and women, absolutely. And there's a wonderful line from the scriptures. This is wisdom to love life. So she's about biophilia versus necrophilia. There's so much necrophilia that dominates. And I think a lot of it begins in education, the last few centuries. So this being able to fall in love with life again before it's too late, and to put that forward, that's the Black Madonna too. That's wisdom. And
I
there's a
think
wonderful.
we can do it. We are infinitely resilient, but it won't happen unless your voice shines and illuminates the divine feminine voice rising and owning it. And so, yeah, and here we have a scholar, a sacred ritualist, divine masculine holding the container. I mean, just what we brought together today, to me, is the movement towards the collaborative, and as you said, power with, not power over. That paradigm is dissolving. We are seeing it dissolve, and we are rising and moving the new energies. And I did find the card. Here it is.
Oh, here it is.
This card that I chose is about people choosing their divinity. These are my paintings. And it is ending separation from source. She'll pop back again. My very body is a conduit for the connection to all that is. My energy lines weave together all that is, and I am fully connected to source at all times. I feel held, loved, and sustained infinitely by source, and bring this heaven to earth in all that I do and am. The affirmation is heaven and earth weave through my beingness, and all is one in harmony. So again, I know we can talk all day. This has been the most blessed circle, and just a kernel, just the beginning. Matthew, tell people how they can contact you or be part of your world, your website.
Your courses.
Yeah.
Well, MatthewFox.org is my website, MatthewFox.org. And I also have daily meditations with Matthew Fox. They're free, but you can get on and see what I'm saying and interact with it, offer your comments and so forth. So that's available too, and that's free. MatthewFox.org. Daily meditations with MatthewFox.org. Yeah. So there's a simple way to get a hold of me. And I am doing quite a lot of teaching and so forth in the next few months and workshops. Doing a Celtic workshop on Advent and the themes of light in December from various traditions, the solstice and Kwanzaa, and also Hanukkah and Christmas. So I'm doing that with a Celtic group. They have wonderful singers, Nareen Narayan and so forth. So we're doing that. And
Is that live?
events. So just go to my webpage and you can find out. It's online, yeah. That one is. There is one live event in Los Angeles also. Yeah. So
Well,
I've enjoyed being with you both. It's been exciting and it gives me hope.
this is wonderful to sit at this round table of the masculine and feminine, collaborating joyfully and bringing more love to the planet. And Asuya, thank you for being my partner in She Said Talks. Matthew, thank you for gracing us with your wisdom and breadth and depth of just immense gravitas.
Ashe.
Ashe, Swaha, Aho.
Carry on.
Right.
Meditations and stuff and other places. But yeah, it's just really exciting, this renaissance of the 12th century that took the power from the patriarchal monasticism and from the feudal system, the economic system that was based on who has the most land. And this is where Francis of Assisi and Dominic came in, and they said, yeah, we can have a different version of monasticism. We don't have to be out in the countryside and make you come to us for education. We can set up education in the city. And the cathedral, where the goddess sits, ruling things in the city, which includes celebration. This is Black Madonna too. Celebration of life, eros, biophilia, but also celebration of ideas, celebration of learning. You know, that it's a positive thing. It's an exciting thing. And so anyway, that was the revolution then. And good things came from it, but obviously it didn't last that long. Also, in this 100-year period, 125-year period, the beginning of the university in the West, it was not homophobic. A whole study's been done on that by John Boswell about homosexuality in the Middle Ages. And for the 125 years, for example, in the early universities, they were reading gay poetry in literature classes as well as straight poetry, etc. And also it was the most creative time for that too, of course. And in fact, the bishop at Chartres Cathedral, when it was being built, was gay. And also, if you go to Chartres Cathedral, you go down the basement, there's a well there. It's an ancient well.
Yes.
And it's to the goddess, of course. And it, just like in Ireland, there are all these wells to the goddess, you see, water and earth and dark, like you were talking about, the darkness, that a well takes you down to the darkness. So yeah, all this is part of a healthy feminine and the masculine kind of backing off and understanding, hey, there are different ways to be human.
And this is what's needed right now, a new renaissance, which is rebirth, which is the divine mother birthing us all over into sanity and love and eros and justice and peace. I mean, that is what's needed. We're coming out of the Gothic age of hyper toxic masculinity, go and conquer, kill and destroy, which is also, it sounds like the devil. Isn't that what that is?
Well, it is.
Kill, maim, and destroy.
It almost sounds like the Antichrist.
Right? I'm like, wait a minute. His sole purpose is
big
to
black octopus
kill and destroy.
Down and sucks in people's energies and wraps around them. And
that's right. That's right.
But I love how
it's necrophilia, love of death instead of life.
Yes, and that's which is why
Eric Fromm says necrophilia grows when biophilia is stunted. Absolutely. Necrophilia grows when biophilia is stunted. And so this love of life is stunted.
We need to get biophilia crowns.
That's good. I like that.
I love
it. I really want to talk about that because there was a poem, I cannot find it, but it asked, and so this is paraphrasing. She did a much beautiful job. I'm going to find it somewhere. But it was a poem / essay written by a woman who asked, what if instead of celebrating not only death, but the brutal death of a man of love on a cross, and that we celebrate that as our way of being that governs how we act and behave, because we don't want what happened to him to happen to us, which is all fear-based terrorism. You know, it's a way to dominate. Like, you don't want this to happen to you, holding a cross up, so be good or else, you know. And she said, you know,
Or they say you did it to him. That's
yeah,
another
because it's your fault. You put him on the cross.
Yeah, it's
again
your
and
fault.
again. I'm like, I thought
you weren't even there 2,000 years ago, but you
and I
did
thought
it.
he
You're
died to save
responsible.
my
Talk
soul.
about shame.
Yeah, and it's like he died for my soul to save my soul, but yet I'm born in sin. How the heck did that happen? He died for me. I'm clean. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is that what she said, what if instead of that being the linchpin upon which Christianity is built, if it was instead, since there's wood involved and nature and the earth, what if it instead was the image we hold on to is a woman / Mary against the tree giving birth and life? And what if we celebrated that mystical force that is woman, that is the womb, that is the miracle of birth, because so many women died in childbirth then and are dying in childbirth now, especially Black women. Another issue. But what if we celebrated that and had that be the linchpin of our Christianity? It's like we also can give birth to the divine. We also, male and female, can give birth to something magical and mystical and divine. What if we made that the linchpin? And I'm like, thank you, because I'm sure every mystical tradition talks about that.
We have to rebirth.
Well, no, you're right.
We have to rebirth it. And did you know that our vocal cords and our feminine organs have the same shape? The same
shape.
Squamous smooth muscle tissue. They're both vestibules, ministerial places to birth something new. And that's why I focus on the voice.
They look alike.
Good.
They look alike.
Good. But I talk about the fifth chakra as a birth canal.
Yes, it is.
You're birthing your wisdom.
And that's because
it's between the heart and the mind cell. Birthing your wisdom.
It's an altar of alchemy.
Yeah. And this idea of another symbol other than the cross. You see, the cross was not a symbol in Christianity until the 5th century.
Yes.
The earlier symbols were the Good Shepherd and 2 fish, Pisces, the age of Pisces, because that occurred at the time of Jesus, the 1st century. So those were the dominant symbols up until, why the 5th century? Because the church took over the empire in the 4th century.
Exactly.
And if you're going to have an empire, then that cross thing becomes very, it becomes a power symbol. But another symbol is resurrection. And for that, that's like, I see that as a spiral, like is on the Newgrange a monument in Ireland, which is older than the pyramids. And the front door, if you will, the big stone, has 3 spirals in it. And they stand for life, death, and regeneration. They stand for a lot of things, but birth too. And the monument inside, the light comes down one day a year, and that is the solstice. And they think that they had fertility rites in there. They had birthing rites, but also burial rites in there. That was kind of a sacred purpose. But another thing is the labyrinth, I think, in some ways, that's a spiral too. And that's an affirmation of this birthing archetype that you're talking about.
The cross is rebirthing, because this is the masculine, the electric mental, and this is the feminine horizontal, the space holder. And in the middle is the 0 point, the void, the vesicle Pisces of rebirthing. And to me, when I look at the cross, you are dying to the light. You are dying to your old self in consciousness and becoming perfectly balanced in your masculine and feminine in that 0 point that connects you to the grid of all that is. So I never think of the cross as of a bleeding human died for my sins. Since I was little, I would say, why is this all so negative?
And Yeah, that's a good point about the, that there are ways to kind of redeem even that image of the cross. And it is 4 directions too. So that too, that it's cosmic and it is a tree. And that whole thing with everything the tree represents. And
Beautiful.
I'm looking at your plant right over your shoulder there. Anyway, I think I've got to run now.
This is very cool. Well, to be
Enjoyed our
continued.
conversations.
Let's do
continued.
lunch,
Okay.
right?
Let's
Carry on.
do
Yeah.
lunch.
Yeah. And carry on with your wonderful work.
Much
This
love.
Thank you so much for
perfectly timed.
joining us. Thank you so much for
Perfectly
that.
timed.
Thank you so much for
Bye-bye.
joining.
Go for it.
You're
Bye
in
now.
our circle now.